everybody. Welcome back to the B Channel podcast, where my objective is to bless, edify, and encourage others to live their best lives. And today's topic is called the power of advocacy. And my guest today is Trent Brock. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey guys, glad you're here today, and spend a few minutes with us. I think we're going to talk a little bit about my journey, and the advocacy thing is kind of a result of all that.
Yes, absolutely. So, my first question for you today is,
Yeah.
why does faith matter in the midst of a trial?
Wow. Well, there's only so much you can control, and the stuff that you can't, you need God's grace for, or that's what I lean on. I can want to do my part and do my thing, for the situation or whatever it calls for. But in everything in life and in all situations, really, there's stuff that you can't control, and
Right.
I think that's where the faith and the grace come in.
Absolutely. You need faith and you need grace. Or it's like you can't make it without the faith and you can't make it without the grace. God's grace helping you get through some things.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Plug that in. So, okay. So why do you think that it matters to be your own advocate?
Oh wow, that's a really good question. I guess maybe I should give just a little background about it.
Hmm.
So people don't think I'm just coming from left field.
Right.
So yeah, I had I'm obviously American, but I traveled all over the world doing IT work,
Hmm.
and I ended up in New Zealand, and that was probably about 20 years ago. Started a kettle corn business on the weekend with a buddy. Didn't have kettle corn there. And the business grew. It went crazy. I stopped the IT thing, and 14 years later in the popcorn business, it grew to number two, and we serviced all of New Zealand and all over the world. And back in 2019, I started limping around my factory, and couple went to a couple doctors, kept telling me I had a torn butt muscle, and then I got an X-ray at the hospital for something totally unrelated, and they called me a week later, and I got one of those calls that people, that start to get up in their age get, and it's one of those calls that you don't want to get to change your life, and it's that I had the big C, I had cancer. And so this put me on my cancer journey, which, started out with I had hip cancer, and we got over that, and then lung cancer, and then pancreatic is less than a 5% chance to make it. I was given a year to live in New Zealand. All my doctors told me, you're done for, go home and be with your family. Came home and, just started out at the local clinic here, and we ended up zapping a tumor that was about the size of a softball.
Mm.
So we got that, and we got that, and then I did some immunotherapy. And with the hip thing, I had an infection in my hip from New Zealand. They never could get rid of it, and they told me I'd never walk again as well. So we got through that. We got through that, and I was alive, and I'm like, well, I want to get off these crutches because I've been on crutches or a wheelchair for 5 years.
Mm.
So um, I'm right in the middle of that now, where I've had we got over the infection, chronic infection, told I'd never get rid of, which all these little things that are you've been told by man that you'll never get rid of are miracles, in my opinion, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then so now I went all over the country and talked to doctors all over the world. No one would touch me because of this hip thing that I had. And I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just use a little bit of a sample. So this is my actual hip, okay? So you can see,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's the spine, and that
Mm-hmm.
is the right side of my pelvis. There's nothing on this side because they cut it
Mm-hmm.
all off, totally gone, right? And
Wow.
yeah. And this is just kind of a little photo. This kind of just shows people, okay, like that's where no bone is. That's where my normal hip is. This is where the leg bone is. Okay. They
Mm-hmm.
put a little wire in there that was supposedly causing infection, but you can see there's no bone there at all. right?
Wow. So for those of you who will be listening to this, he is showing pictures. He has props. He came prepared, y'all. He has an actual skeletal representation of what his anatomy looks like.
Yeah,
So be
yeah,
prepared if you watch this on video to really get informed. Like this is
yeah.
great. I love that you had props with.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, yeah. I just think visuals, they really help people, understand. Yeah. So, about a year, less than a year ago, I had the largest, most complex hip implant ever done to date in the world, done with procedures that have never been done. And I'm close to walking. I'm on one crutch now. I'm closer to walking than I never have been. And then I'll be on a crutch. Then I mean a cane, a cane, and then eventually I'll be walking.
Hey,
So
baby steps. That's
yeah,
graduation, okay?
the so this is where this patient advocacy thing was born out of.
Mhm.
So I've done the public health sector in New Zealand,
Mhm.
for 17 years, and intensely for a couple, right? And
Mhm.
then I'm from the states, and then we're back into kind of the private thing. So I've done both. I've done
Mhm.
both. I can compare both. I'm not here, to be a lobbyist for one or the other or anything like that. I'm
Mhm.
here to say it doesn't matter what um, health system you're in, you need to learn how to advocate for yourself. I don't think people know how to do that, and I think what's happened over many years is, over generations, especially, the ones kind of, our age, and a little bit, further beyond, back, they just take what the expert says.
Right.
It's like, this is the expert. I've come to the expert. They've told me what to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And and that's what I did for 2 years. That's what I did. I listened. I did what I kind of did what they said. They said we're going to do a surgery. We're going to do we're going to do this medication or that or whatever. I just kind of did what I was told. And one day, I'd been given the sentence, right, that I had a year left, and I was on the phone
Mhm.
with folks, and I just thought, I'm not going down like this. I'm gonna I'm gonna take I'm going to take my life back into my own hands, and I'm going to use these doctors as part of my team to be an input to the decision, but I have the final call. I get to make the final choice over my life. And with that kind of mindset, I begin kind of building out a bit of, kind of a system to where I think that works, and it's worked for me, to kind of advocate for yourself. And people, what happens is, most people, they don't have anything really happen to them. They go to the doctor every once in a while, they break an arm, maybe they have their tonsils out, nothing major. Then all of a sudden,
Mhm.
some major health issue happens, and then they've got to get involved in this health system. So, and it's confusing, it's frustrating, it's this giant complex system of things that you've never dealt with, you don't understand. And you're dealing with this health thing and this issue, and then you're dealing with this system that you don't understand. And you should spend your time and focus and energy on you, and not frustrated with the system and the
Right.
anxiety that it causes, and and the lack of control and everything that you feel, right?
Right. It's really something though, because I've experienced it on a small scale. Because recently I had to call, like, make it my job to call the doctor's office and ask for the medicine that I needed to get from the place I needed to get it from.
Absolutely.
And I was like, wow, you really do have to call and call and call and call and call.
Yeah.
And then, I saw my mom, I witnessed my mom be a great advocate for my father,
Okay.
because even at the point of his injury, when he had got hit by a car about 7 years ago in
Oh,
August, and she just was like, I need to talk to whoever is going to do this surgery or whatever y'all want to do to him,
yeah.
because you like they'll try to send like an intern or something. Like, no, I want to talk to whoever's doing it. And until I talk to that person, nothing is happening. I'm not signing anything. So you have to have that kind of stance. And
Yeah.
because sometimes people can just look at a person kind of like an experiment, right? And we have to humanize ourselves in front of those people and say, look, this is my loved one. I don't get another one, so you're not going to play
Sure.
around with my loved one. I need to know exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. And those things are something that we can't be afraid to say, because this is our life. Like you said, you get
Yeah,
one life.
that's
So
it.
I love that you took control in that way and didn't fall into despair and hopelessness, you know?
Absolutely. And I was there. I was there for a couple of years,
Hmm.
and when I made that decision, things begin to change. Right? Things
Right.
begin to change, and it wasn't easy from there. It was really hard. I mean, I had to go through the radiation, therapy, and more surgeries, and antibiotics for 3 months that made you feel sick like you're on chemo. I mean, just the list of things go on and on. But that's it. You do. You only get one life, and no one cares about your life more than you do.
Okay.
Right? In this instance, it's okay for it to be all about me this time on this,
Right.
right?
You're the
You
one
know,
who has to endure whatever they're going to do,
that's
or
right.
not, God forbid.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
um I have another thing that I desperately have to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
How did you sense God's advocacy for you in this season?
How did I set God's
Yeah,
advocacy?
how did you sense his advocacy for you
Oh,
in
how did I
this season?
sense it?
Mhm.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've always been a Christian. I was raised, as a young kid, as a Christian, and
Mhm.
when I got into college and did, I kind of went off and did my thing, and traveled around the world and all that. But I'll tell you what, when you get diagnosed with something this serious, this terminal, you start talking to God because you want Him to know you're coming.
Okay. Right?
Um, and I'll tell you, I just my relationship with him got stronger, and I began to feel that voice inside me
Mhm.
talking to me, and
Mhm.
and helping me make these crucial decisions, literally life, death, or limb. Right?
Right.
They were going to take my leg. I mean,
Mm.
that was the plan. And thank God that didn't happen. My dad got involved, from that standpoint, and I didn't want him to do it, and thank God they left it. I'm, like one of the 1% that they do leave the leg with this kind of leg
Mm.
surgery that they do, this hip surgery. Um, but,
Amen.
but yeah, and I know. I'll tell you this. What happened? So, the third time, the third time I was diagnosed with the pancreatic thing.
Mhm.
I had been at church, and I thought, like I kind of had an encounter with the pastor, where he walked by the aisle. I was on the corner of the aisle. He walked by on his way to the pulpit, kind of touched me on the shoulder, didn't know me, didn't anything, kind of slapped me on the back, and I felt like this zap thing happened, right? And I'm like, man, I've been cured. I've been cured of this tumor that's the size of a tennis ball right now, right?
Whoa.
Okay. And so in like 4 or 5 months, just to give you an idea, it was this big when they found it, the size of a couple
Mm.
nickels, right? In 4 months, it grew to the size of a tennis ball.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, so this was in the middle of planning the biopsy and getting it ready in New Zealand with the public health care, and how slow it is, and and all that. And I thought, man, when I get this biopsy, it's not going to be cancer, or it's going to be gone, or they're not going to find it, or something. This is what I'm thinking. Well, I had the biopsy, and of course, I mean, the guy came right out right after the procedure, and he's like, it's definitely cancer. There's no doubt.
Mm.
Crushed me. And I'm thinking, this is my only chance. This is my only chance to stay alive. And I had a couple of more appointments with some private doctors, and I talked with my folks, and I just thought, I don't have anything left. I'm coming home, right? I'm coming home for the year I have left. And my thought was, I think that God directed me on this. It was the start at home, start locally in Arkansas with your parents where they live. They were in New Zealand with the hip thing, It was hard on everybody. Let's don't drag them to MD Anderson or Cleveland Clinic all over the country. Let's just start where we can go to and from our own home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started with the local guy, and he's the one that zapped my pancreatic cancer tumor, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then we had the hip infection, right? And through my network of being here in Arkansas, we found this specialist guy. We did some stuff. We tried some antibiotics. We did some things. I got a special okay to do 3 months of these IV antibiotics and had to do every single day for 2 hours at the same time. Made me
Mm-hmm.
sick. Most people only do it for 2 hours, 2 months. I did it for three, but we
Wow.
got the infection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the deal with the hip, and that whole thing. And I couldn't find anybody in the country to talk to me or do anything. And again, being here in Arkansas, talking to this network,
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy that advised me about the only guy really in the world that could do this surgery. And I
Wow.
had already been to Mayo Clinic and seen them, and they told me they couldn't do anything.
Wow.
So all these things happened, and they wouldn't have happened if all I got was what I wanted, which was to just be cured of the pancreatic cancer in New Zealand. I wouldn't have gotten the hip infection would probably still be there. I would still be limping around with a shoe like this.
Oh my goodness. That
That's
is humongous.
that's how
Y'all
short
gotta
I
see this
was.
shoe that he just held up if y'all listening.
Yeah. This gives platform shoe a whole new definition.
Yes.
It's like four and a quarter
Sure.
inches.
Make
I
sure
I
y'all
had
go
I
watch
had
this on YouTube.
yeah
Y'all gotta see this
I had
shoe.
that. Yeah. So, and now, I'm close to being able to walk again.
And
So
that's
it's
amazing.
yeah, not all those things wouldn't have happened if I didn't say, hey, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that we didn't cure the pancreatic cancer this way. We did it another way. And one of the things was, you know, honestly, I was disappointed, I was upset, I was frustrated, and I was angry. And I was angry at God, right? And I
Mhm.
thought, you can't harbor this, you can't hold it, because really, one of the only chances you have it is God in this situation. And I think that's
Yes.
what a lot of people do is they blame God for things that happen to them and happen in their life, but that's not what happens. That's not it. Long time ago with Adam and Eve, they messed it up for all of us. They messed the world up, and the world is the devil's domain.
Mhm.
And the way we get it, the way that we get out of it is we get to go to the most wonderful place ever is heaven.
Mhm.
Jesus sent his son for that. So
Right.
the way we're going to get out of this situation is we're going to die and go to heaven, right? And
Right.
the way you get out of a situation, a worldly situation, right now is something may happen, but God will help you find a way out. So that's the way I
Right.
look at it, right? That God didn't cause it, that things just happen because that's the way the world is. But, God will give you a way out.
Yes, and you have to submit to his leadership and be willing to humble yourself and say, there's another way that could be better that I have no clue about because I'm just human, you know?
Absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
I really respect that you
Yeah.
said, okay, I'm gonna allow this process to play out in the best way possible. And look, God orchestrated things in such a way where you couldn't have never put that together.
Yeah. Trust and believe. And, it's pretty hard to do. It's pretty hard to do when you've got a less than 5% chance to make it and you've been
Mhm.
told you've been given a year, man. And, that's dire. That is tough.
Yes.
But,
I can
we're still
imagine.
here. 3 years later, we're still here.
Okay. Let's celebrate. That's something to celebrate and just
Absolutely.
really just be joyful about. Let's rejoice.
Yeah. Every day. God,
Yeah.
it's just you take things for granted that you don't until you don't. That you take things for granted that you wouldn't until you don't have them. Like
Right.
walking around, just being able to carry your own plate to the table. I mean, simple things, right?
Hmm.
People can't do. I was in the hospital with my hip surgery, and they took out so much of that thing. I wasn't allowed out of the bed for 60 days. They had to roll me over on my side to wipe my backside for me.
Oh my
Like, let
goodness.
me tell
Talk
you,
about humbling.
yes, you think, and the therapist comes in, after a couple of months of this, and she's like, "What are your top three goals?" And I said, "Number one, I want to be able to wipe my own bottom."
Okay.
Right? And I'm
I'm
telling you,
with you.
something that simple, we take for granted every single day, until it's not there anymore. I mean, you're just like, man,
Mm.
how arrogant was I, right?
Oof. That is so deep. It's so profound because a lot of things that um like I've witnessed my dad like kind of lose his ability to do a lot of those things.
Right.
And it is, I know it has to be humbling on his side to have to wait for somebody to do this or that for you all the time, whatever it may be.
Oh yeah.
And when they have the time or the patience or to do it.
Yeah.
So I know that was really a trying time for you.
Oh man, all of that, and I was on top of popcorn heaven, you know, building my business, doing my thing, happy, working in my factory, teaching people how to make the popcorn, behind the desk, doing the office stuff, the acting, doing
Mhm.
everything, right?
Right.
And within a moment's notice, I was to where I was in a bed, you know, working on my computer, calling my team, asking them, to do this and do that because I couldn't even, walk on the floor. I couldn't even get on the floor, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a great segue because I wanted to ask you, how important is it to have the right people on your side to support you?
That goes back to the patient advocacy thing a bit, right?
Mhm.
Because it just so happened to kind of be like this. Several of the people of my doctors, and I had some really good doctors in New Zealand, but
Mhm.
towards the end with this pancreatic thing, I mean, all of them, they just counted me out from my orthopedic, my lung doctor,
Mhm.
my pancreatic doctor, my private physician that I went to see as a consult, and
Wow.
they all just this is what they kind of came up with and decided. And when I got here, the first guy I saw, he came in, I came in and I said, look, this is the situation, look at the x-rays. This is the size of the tumor. I can read the scan report. This is what they're saying, and he said, look, all these concerns that they can't do anything for me in New Zealand. They can't do surgery. They can't do radiation. They have no options. And he just said, well, in a very humble manner, we have pretty good machinery here, Trent, and I think we can get it. And that's where somebody joined my team of hope,
Mm.
right?
Yes, and I just love the confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what happened when I found the infectious disease doctor about my chronic, infection in my hip. And the
Mhm.
same thing with the doctor, that did my hip thing. And I've seen a lot of people in between. And
Mhm.
that's part of the thing. That's part of the thing with the advocacy. People feel bad, right? They're like, oh, I
Mhm.
don't want to get a second opinion. It may hurt their feelings. You know what? If it bothers them and it's an issue, then they're probably not the right doctor for you. Because if they're
Right.
confident in their diagnosis and you want a verification because it is your life,
Right.
then we should encourage you to do that. And why not reinforce their diagnosis, their opinion, their comments, and if not, well, gosh, maybe you ought to reconsider who you're dealing with. And I've had a few along the way here in the States where it's like we just we didn't get along.
Mhm.
I was just like, this just isn't the perspective that I want. This person to be on my team, right?
Right.
Choose my team. With this thing in my life and my health, I get to choose my team.
Right.
No hard feelings. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be rude. You just say, you know what? This isn't working out for me. I need to try the next option.
Yeah, I think half the battle in those types of situations is having someone who hears you, feeling heard, and just being listened to, and given that consideration, being treated like a human being.
Right.
And
I mean, one of the things that I ask in almost every appointment that I go to, when we're trying to figure out what our next step is or what we're going to do, or, maybe, this is the medication. We go through it, we talk about the symptoms and, the side effects and, everything and how we're going to measure blah, 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 blah.
mhm.
But I always ask them, like, if it was you, what would you do?
Right.
And then the next question I like to ask is, because most people are kind of harder on themselves than
Mhm.
their child, right? And I say, well, if
Right.
it was your child, what would you do, right? Because then
Right.
you kind of get both perspectives of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, how willing are they to fight for themselves, and how much empathy do they have for somebody else?
Right. So that's the kind of care that I would that I'm gonna strive for, right? And if you get
Yeah.
anything less than that, then maybe it's okay. Maybe you're cheating yourself. Maybe you're not. But I'm not
Right.
going to do that. Not with mine. Not with the precious life that we've
Okay.
saved.
Yes, and on top of that, right? I love this perspective that you're bringing, because a lot of times you don't really think about this whole idea of a team until you're in crisis. And because you only need that one person, maybe you're only seeing like one kind of doctor, like a regular family doctor or a GYN or whatever, whoever you need to see based on your gender. But like it's like you don't think about all these extra people
Yeah.
and how you're going to relate to each other, because at the end of the day you're going for that physical, maybe see them yearly, maybe get that medicine, that prescription, and it's not much else happening.
Right.
But with those types of situations that you found yourself in, you definitely need to have a solid rapport.
You
So
know, I'll tell you, this is kind of an analogy that I use that kind of helped me, because man, it got really heavy with this whole life and death thing, right?
mhm.
I mean, it was like, you know, almost, a couple times a week I'm going in, for over a couple of months, and I'm going in to see my doctor, and they're like, yeah, we've read the reports. It's not good. You know,
Mm,
you're not going to make it through this. You probably need to figure out what your final
right.
plans are. And I'm just like, dude, this life and death thing. And so I kind of took myself out of that, and I put myself into the game of life. And for me, the game of life is football. And so, I'm the quarterback.
Mhm.
Here's where the team thing comes in, right? So
Mhm.
my friends are my teammates. Maybe, my coach is one of my doctors.
Mhm.
Maybe, my mentor or my life coach or whatever, and not every single play, every single decision you make, you don't make yardage on, you don't make the right thing, maybe you even get sacked, right?
Mhm.
But you got a few chances at this thing. And if you get to 10 yards, if you get to a certain place, we get to start over.
Right.
And so, this, like in almost every scenario that I could do with my life, I could apply it to something in a football game, in a team sport kind of thing, right? And hey, you know what? If I didn't like somebody on my team, I just trade them out.
Right. So that brings to mind something that you said earlier that I want to rewind back to. Do
Sure.
you have any practical tips for people that need to get that second opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a couple things you can do, right? People try to find a doctor in a couple of ways. Word of
Mhm.
mouth, right? Ask a
Mhm.
friend, ask a family member. You get on the internet, you look
Mhm.
around, and then the other way is they get a referral,
Mhm.
right? And so I'm going to kind of present a little bit of that. So if you're going to ask your doctor for a second opinion, here are
Mhm.
some of the things to think about. If I'm going to ask him, is he going to give me his buddy down the road, his friend that's going to just back him up and say the same thing?
Right. Is it a
Right?
bias option?
Correct. Is it something like that? Now, if it's about the same thing, right, and you need a totally independent diagnosis, of the situation. Maybe you want to find someone, in another, another independent way, right?
Right.
But if it is, maybe they have, for example, like my oncologist,
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain group of guys that have an infectious disease company that he
Mm-hmm.
worked with, and he's like, well, if you need to go to the ID team, I like to use these guys. And so there's some cohesiveness with
Nuance.
that,
Right.
right? So you just kind of have to be careful, what your ultimate goal is with a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if you want one, almost every insurance covers that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're entitled to get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, I mean, if it's a cold, okay, whatever. But if it's something that could be, let's say, medium serious, go get a second opinion if you want to, right?
Right.
You only get one chance at this life. And
Right.
here's the thing, right? These people, they mean the best. They're kind of trying to do what they can do. Their intentions are right. But if they make a mistake or something happens, sure, they're going to say they're sorry. But you're the one left holding the consequences.
Right.
So
So
that's
like,
why you have to fight for yourself, right? And I
yeah.
don't, you know what? And with me, it's it's politely firm and direct, right?
Right.
I don't want to be rude. I don't want to burn any bridges. I mean, these people are, some of they're trying to, they're trying to do the best they can, and there's a group of people that works for them. That's why there's a variety of all different doctors and all different things, right? Because not
Mm-hmm.
everything fits for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
I simply decided I really just didn't want to continue to go with somebody because I didn't really get along with them. And
Right.
that's okay. I mean, that's okay, right?
Yes.
In a serious health situation, you need to be happy and like and feel confident in who you choose to be on your team.
Exactly. So was there a time where you fell victim to the enemy's lies about your circumstance?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still fight some of that. I think we all do. But yeah, when they officially diagnosed me, right, with the
Mm-hmm.
pancreatic thing, and I knew, because in between this, right,
Mm-hmm.
I had the lung thing. I mean, I had the hip thing. Then I was diagnosed with pancreatic and lung cancer. I
Mm-hmm.
had a pancreas surgery.
Mm.
They removed half of my pancreas and spleen, and it was a misdiagnosis. It was not cancer. They mistaken it for a blood clot that was on my pancreas.
My goodness.
Okay. Then we had then we had the lung surgery, which was cancer. Okay, and then another hip surgery to try to remove that wire that turned into a whole botched up mess. And
Mm.
then after that, we had the pancreas, the real pancreas. It really was. That's why I demanded to do a biopsy, because the first time they
Right. They
skipped it.
fudged and
They
then you
skipped
had
it.
to suffer.
They bullied me. They bullied me into saying, Trent, you've got cancer. You had the hip cancer. You've got, on this scan, it's you got cancer in two places. Like, you're in denial. You've got cancer. We're not going to do that. We're skipping the biopsy. We're skipping the time to do that and the money to do that, and we're just going to do the surgery.
Wow.
Okay.
Which brings us back to the topic, advocate.
So, you can see why, I have a bit of passion about it, right?
Yes, it
But
is so vital.
your thing was, did I fight with the enemy about it?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think my toughest battle, okay, was, here's kind of the situation. Um, I had gotten out of the hospital from the lung surgery,
Mhm.
and the leg actually was still infected. It was still wide open. I had a massive, massive wound that took 8 or 9 months to heal.
Wow.
When they released me, okay, it was a
Mhm.
bit of an abrupt release. The surgeon came in and he said, "Look, somebody needs this bed more than you do. and you're out of here tomorrow.
Whoa.
This is in New Zealand in the public system. Okay. And I said,
Wow.
I've got a wound on my back that's still open. I've got this
Mm.
gigantic thing on my leg with a vac on it that I have to carry around my waist. I'm on crutches. I've got an IV thing
What?
in my arm that they're giving me IV drugs 2 or 3 times a day. And he's like, "Look, I understand, but we don't have limited beds, and you got to go tomorrow. Somebody needs this
So
bed
where did
for
you
you."
go
Went home.
with all that going on?
They put me in a taxi and sent me
A
home.
taxi. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So did you have like any type of home health care or anything?
Well, I'll tell you what. I had a couple of roommates, and this was during COVID,
Oh my goodness.
and one of them just bought into the whole thing, man. And he was like meltdown mode city over it. He and I had some disagreements about it. And see, I had my popcorn business, and I was still going to work when we were in lockdown because I had to make food to put on the shelves for people to go to the supermarket and buy something to eat because it was the only place you could go to get food for months.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we had a big to do. So in short, he and I didn't get along and weren't on speaking terms. So no, I had no home help, nothing.
Oh my goodness.
So
That sounds so traumatic. Like
it
how
was
did you
for
get over that?
well, that when they released me, okay, they
Mhm.
didn't give me any medication to go home with, and I didn't think I needed any because I had been through this before, and but I started going through withdrawal with some of the pain medication, and
Mm.
it flipped me out. I was having hot and cold flashes, the sweats. I was angry. I was short tempered. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was having suicidal thoughts. And it just became this whole thing with like trying to get the medication and trying to get to the pharmacy. And they were treating me like a crackhead, and it
Oh
was
my
just
goodness.
horrible. So I was having like extremely, extremely convincing suicidal thoughts, right?
Hmm.
I was close to doing it, like close to the point where I was like, if I stay here in this room, I'm going to do this. I have to leave, right? I
Mm.
have to get in my car. I've got to leave.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so, yes, yes, I have dealt with the lies of the enemy because
Mhm.
that's what he wanted, right? That's what he wanted.
Right.
He wanted me to not be a problem for him anymore. And look,
Mm.
all these things have happened. These miracles of all these things that had less than, a handful chance of percentage to be. It's not coincidence. It's not by chance. It's because, you know, I have had the anointing put on me. And
Right.
and I'm here to tell my story and to do this, and I'm going to make an impact for people to give them hope, to give them inspiration, and to say, look, if you need some help, I'm here to teach you how to be your own patient advocate, not to say, hire me to go do everything for you.
Right.
Okay. If you would like me to, sure. Let's talk. Let's see if we get along. And then we can figure out if you want to be taught the skills of how to do it yourself.
Right.
Right? Because this goes back to the person that cares the most about you in this entire world is you.
Right. It's like nobody's going to love you or want like more for you than you want for yourself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, except for, like your family member, a close
Right.
family member, right? So,
That is so deep.
hmm,
I'm glad you had the right team, the right family and friends, in some of the situations. I won't
yeah,
say all, but at
it's
least
all
you had
right.
somebody there.
It's okay. We made it. We made it through. Days are better. Things are better. Life is better, and gosh, I mean, I get caught up in it still, right? I get
Mhm.
caught up and start taking things for granted, and I get checked just a little bit, and I'm like, wow, yeah, you're taking that for granted all over again. That you have something to eat, you have a roof over your head, you have great family that's taking care of you and supported you. I was able to still run my business through the whole thing the entire time. We still did
Oof.
it. We never had to close the doors. We kept everything going. I was able to sell it a couple of months ago. I
Mm,
mean, just it goes on and on and on, with
wow.
everything. So yeah.
That's a blessing. So, if you could plant a seed, I always ask everybody to plant a seed for the listeners. If there's
Mhm.
anything that you could tell them to take away from this conversation, if they only can remember one thing that you said, what would that be?
Grit, don't quit. If you don't give up, you don't fail.
Right. That's the only way you fail is to give up.
Yeah, you never do, even if everyone else did, because everyone counted me out, right? Everybody,
Right.
everybody, except really my folks, right? My folks were
Mhm.
with me. They never wavered. Just the one time that I was on the phone with them, and I could tell, when I had gotten diagnosed, and it was just like,
Mhm.
what are we gonna do?
Heavy.
My
Yeah.
kid's on the other side of the world. There's nothing we can do. He's in lockdown in New Zealand during COVID. We can't go there. We can't come here. What are we going to do? But other than that, it was them. And then I
Mhm.
started finding the doctors that I picked that I
Mhm.
wanted to be on my team. And look at where we are now.
Yeah, so you can't get caught up in where you are, like keep looking forward to what could possibly be.
Absolutely. It's so
Yeah.
hard to do, right? And that
Mhm.
goes back to the football, right? You can only do this play right now. This play, this is the only play you got. The one you just did, it's over, right? The one you're about to do doesn't matter until you do this one. So it's
Right.
all about today. It's about today, and that was kind of my formula. It was like, I got this big, huge goal out here, right? I'm gonna try.
Mhm.
I'm gonna live, right? I'm gonna live.
Mhm.
But I, like that's just it's so overwhelming to think I'm gonna live over past a year, and I'm like, but you know what? I'm gonna live today,
Right.
and I'm
Be
gonna make
present.
yeah, I'm gonna live today. I'm gonna make decisions that put me in a place that when I'm going to bed tonight and I'm sitting there all by myself trying to go to sleep, that I don't feel guilty or resentful or remorse or anything that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And it's as simple as making the right decision, as many of the right decisions you can during the day to put yourself in the situation that you win today. If you win enough days in a row, you win. You stay alive.
Yes, that is so powerful. I love that. Do you have any projects that you are currently working on?
Yeah, actually, I have my website, and that's up and running, and so I'm in development of some patient advocate courses. I have really talked to a lot of people. I'm a very um, big participative member in our local cancer organization here in Northwest Arkansas called the Cancer Challenge. I've talked
Mhm.
to a lot of cancer patients, a lot of people. I've done a lot of stuff, and people don't know how to advocate for themselves. So
Right.
the thing that I've done since I've sold my business is that's what I'm doing now. I'm coaching people on learning how to advocate for themselves, and then I'm building some courses, right, that teach you step by step simple stuff. People that things don't even think are a big deal until they're a big deal, like preparing for a doctor's appointment, going in, getting the most out of your 15 minutes, preventing things like 17 million people per year get a mixed diagnosis in the US.
Wow.
Don't you want to be involved? Don't you want to be involved in your own thing to do a little check and balance and all that kind of stuff? And
Right.
I want to be able to give people the tools and the skills to do that. That's the
What a
process.
gift.
Yeah.
What a gift. You turned your pain into purpose for real.
That's
That's
what yeah,
admirable.
that's simply all it is. I think this has been my life calling. I think this is my life calling. I've done what I thought I was supposed to do so far, but it's all been building up to get to this. And I think this is what I'm meant to do. This is how I'm going to leave my legacy. Because the ultimate thing that I figured out after I sold the business, I sat around thinking to myself, What did I like the most out of it? What did I do? And you know what I like the most? When two or three of the people that came back to me after they had worked for me for a while and they moved on and did their thing, came back and said, you took a chance on me. You taught me how to be good in business. You taught me what I knew, everything I know. You were confident in me. And now I'm going to have a good, successful career and have a family and provide for my family because you simply took a chance on me and taught me some things. It's just that simple thank you that I help somebody. That's all I'm looking for.
Yes, that's amazing. So how can we connect with you?
Yeah, pretty easy. TrentBrockCoaching.com. Yeah, that's just my first name, my last name, and coaching. And so I do a bit of speaking, coaching, and and yeah, and I'm developing the courses. So
That's amazing. So, for everybody that's listening, I have that information on the screen right now. All the tea about Trent will be in the description of this episode, though. So, don't y'all worry about that. Um, and I just thank you so much, Trent, for being a great guest today. That was amazing.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that we reach some people that we haven't reached before. And, I appreciate that you asked me some questions about the advocacy thing and that stuff that we just didn't sit here and talk about the whole cancer journey thing the whole time. You know, I like to
Absolutely.
provide some value to people that are going to listen, right? That's what we do.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I thank everybody so much for watching this episode. If this was a blessing to you, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, and share for more content. Leave a review or a rating so more people can find out about this episode. And just make sure that you are staying in touch with us by following me at B Channel 27. Just let us know what you think and if this was a blessing. You make sure you follow me so you don't miss any future content. And thank y'all so much again for watching. Peace and blessings until next time.